The content of this video, as well as the thoughts, views, and opinions expressed herein, belong to the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the views of Brigham Young University or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hello everyone, and welcome back as we continue with our presentation on financial considerations for a senior mission. I'm excited to be here with you today. Again, my name is Alex Call. I'm a certified financial planner at Peterson Wealth Advisors. Our third topic in this series, and what we will be covering today, is Social Security. Few disclaimers before jumping in. The information provided in this video does not and is not intended to constitute investment or legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials available are for general informational purposes only. Now, a couple disclaimers specifically about Social Security. One, we're not going to cover every situation for every individual today. The original Social Security Act back in 1935 was 29 pages long. The current law, amended many times and greatly expanded, now runs over 2,500 pages. And with that, the presentation is going to be based on current laws as of January 2024. So Social Security law will continue to be amended and expanded over the coming years and decades. We know this, we just don't know what or how it will change. Because of this, we will base the presentation on the laws as they stand today. With that said, let's jump in. So, why even talk about Social Security when it comes to serving a senior mission? There's really two primary reasons. One is that the primary source of income for many who will be serving a senior mission is going to be Social Security. In fact, 40% of all retirement income in the United States comes from Social Security, meaning many of you who would not be able to afford to go on a mission if not for this benefit. Because of that, it's important to understand how Social Security works and who benefits from it. Second, there will be some of you where Social Security is not your primary source of income. You may have other ways of funding your mission: pensions, rental properties, savings, investments in your 401k or IRA. If this is you, then serving a senior mission can be a great opportunity to help maximize your Social Security benefits. We'll go ahead and explain how later on in the presentation. So first we want to talk about who benefits from Social Security. There's really three people that do. You'll have the individual benefits, spousal benefits for both the current and former spouses, and also survivor benefits for widows and widowers. And so understanding the individual benefit calculation is going to be our starting point, because it's the foundation for knowing how spousal and survivor benefits work. Once we've got a handle on the individual calculation, we'll then examine how spousal and survivor benefits work. So, to make sure we're all on the same page, let's define two essential terms used for these calculations: full retirement age and your primary insurance amount. Your full retirement age, this is the age at which you are entitled to receive 100% of your Social Security benefit. Your primary insurance amount, or PIA, is the benefit a person would receive if they elect to begin receiving retirement benefits at their full retirement age. Knowing these two definitions will help guide us through understanding how to get the most out of your Social Security. Next, what are your individual benefits dependent on? The first is going to be how much you earned over your working career. Social Security considers your largest 35 years worth of income. For most of you, your work history is going to be pretty much set, and there isn't much you can do about it at this point. I often talk to people that think since they are in their highest earning years towards the end of their career, that they can affect this number by working a couple more years with a higher income. It affects it a little bit, but the truth is it doesn't make much of a difference because we're looking into 35 years of work history. And so because of that, we're going to focus more on the second factor that determines your benefit, and that is the age at which you apply for Social Security. Meaning, when you take your benefit in relation to your full retirement age. Which begs the question, what is your full retirement age? Well, that depends on what year you were born. As you can see with this table, if you were born before 1954, your full retirement age is going to be 66. If you were born between 1955 and 1959, your full retirement age is between 66 and 67. And if you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. Many people watching this are likely to be born 1960 or later. So, for the rest of the presentation, we will use that age, 67, as the full retirement age. Again, your full retirement age, what this means is that it's the age at which you are entitled to receive 100% of your benefit. But we know that you're able to take your benefit as early as age 62. So what happens if you take your benefit before your full retirement age? Well, you receive a reduced benefit if you claim Social Security early. This chart shows you how much of a reduction you will receive for the year which you claim your benefit early. You can see the earlier you take your benefit, the greater the reduction. So if we look at age 62 as an example, if you were to claim it at that time, at that age, you would only receive 70% of your primary insurance amount. And this reduction is permanent and will impact you and possibly your spouse for the rest of your lives. So we need to be very thoughtful about this decision. But on the flip side, what happens if you take your benefit after your full retirement age? Well, you earn an additional 8% a year for every year you wait to take your Social Security benefit. So as you can see in this chart, if you apply at age 68, your benefit will be 108% of your primary insurance amount. At age 69, it'll be 116%, and so on. Just a couple things to note about this is that after the age of 70, you cannot earn any more of these delayed credits. So it does not pay to wait past age 70 to apply for Social Security. Social Security calculates this monthly, meaning it increases it by 0.66% per month or 8% a year. Another way of looking at this is if you take your benefit at 67 and 6 months, you'll receive an additional 4%. Now, let's put all this together. So, we know if you claim early, for every year remaining before your full retirement age, you will lose about 6% of your full benefit. Whereas every year you delay your benefit beyond your full retirement age, it is going to increase by 8% per year. So that being said, if you were to claim at the earliest possible age of 62, you would only receive 70% of your benefit. Whereas if you delay as far as you can until age 70, you'll receive 124% of your benefit. So if we look at this in dollar terms, let's assume you were entitled to a benefit of $3,000 a month at your full retirement age. If you decide to take the benefit as early as possible, age 62, this benefit would be reduced to $2,100 a month. If you wait to take your Social Security as late as possible, age 70, the amount you will receive is $3,720 a month. After explaining this concept to clients, this almost always leads to another question, break-even point. As in, when will I have made up the amount I would have received if I took Social Security earlier? Or how long will it take to make up for Social Security not received while waiting for the benefit to increase? It ends up being just about 10 years from when you start taking it. I've never seen this number less than 9 or more than 11 years. And almost always, it's right about that 10 years. So as an example, if you take Social Security at age 70, you will have received more money from Social Security by the age of 80, no matter when you would have taken it before. And so, assuming there are no health issues, as a rule of thumb, delaying Social Security is almost always a good idea, especially if you're still working. Now that we've talked about how the individual benefit is calculated, let's jump into the spousal and survivor benefits. So Remember, as we go into these two types of benefits, it's impossible for us to cover every situation and scenario. There are just too many. But we will go over the general rules and principles of how the spousal and survivor benefits work. And so Social Security is gender neutral, meaning any benefit that applies to the wife also applies to the husband, and vice versa. For purposes of this presentation, since single sisters can serve a senior mission, but single brethren cannot, in my examples, I will be using the husband as the primary worker and the wife as the one receiving spousal and survivor benefits. So let's look at the spousal benefits. Social Security was instituted in 1935, an era when most married women did not work. To give women a measure of financial security in their old age, the program offered spousal benefits equal to 1/2 of the primary worker's benefit. This spousal benefit only comes into play if the spouse's own earned benefit is lower than their spousal benefit. Let me show you an example. John and Jane, both planning to retire at their full retirement age of 67, had a goal to serve a mission but doubted they could afford it. John worked full-time while Jane cared for their 6 kids at home. Once the kids grew up, Jane went back to work for a few years, but their savings were still less than they'd hoped, and they expected to rely heavily on Social Security income in retirement. John's Social Security benefit is $3,000 a month, while Jane, based off of her own work history, is $500 a month. These numbers made serving a mission seem out of reach. However, they learned about the spousal benefit, which means Jane receives $1,500 per month, or 50% of John's benefit. Remember, you always receive the higher of these two benefits. So, realizing they'd receive a total of $4,500 a month from Social Security, John and Jane now believe they can afford to go on a mission. I've had many conversations very similar to this with people where learning about the spousal benefits, it has provided them options that they otherwise thought were unattainable. A quick warning though, just like individual benefits, the spousal benefit will get a reduced amount if applied before their full retirement age. So, if Jane takes her spousal or own benefit early, the spousal benefit will be less than 50% of John's. So, let's look at some of the rules for these spousal benefits. The first, the primary worker must have filed for their own benefit before anyone can receive a spousal benefit. The lower earning spouse must be at least 62 for a reduced benefit or age 67 for the full spousal benefit. There are no delayed credits when it comes to spousal benefits, so you should never wait until after your full retirement age to apply for spousal benefits, assuming the primary worker has already filed for theirs. And again, the lower earning spouse receives either their own benefit or the spousal benefit, not both. So this is if you are currently married. What if you're divorced? What are the rules then? They are the exact same as they were for spousal benefits, if you qualify. So how do you qualify for divorced spouse benefits? First, your marriage has to have lasted at least 10 years. The ex-spouse needs to be at least age 62. If your divorce happened less than 2 years ago, then your ex-spouse needs to have filed for benefits. Meaning, if divorce happened more than 2 years ago, it doesn't matter if your ex-spouse files for benefits or not. And also, the person receiving divorced spouse benefits is currently unmarried. So, if you're a divorced spouse and you are currently receiving divorced spouse benefits, then remarry, you will lose those divorced spouse benefits and qualify for spousal benefits with your new spouse. And then, if you get divorced again, you can qualify for those same divorced spouse benefits you had before you were remarried. Here are a few more nuanced rules, all of it good news, and we'll share an example about this here in just a moment. More than one ex-spouse can receive benefits on the same worker's record. Meaning, if your ex-husband has remarried a couple of times, all ex-wives can claim divorced spouse benefits as long as the marriage lasted at least 10 years. The benefits paid to one ex-spouse does not affect those paid to the worker, the current spouse, or any other ex-spouses. The worker will not be notified that the ex-spouse has applied for benefits. So now let's look towards arguably the greatest talk show host in history to help us understand how all of this works. Johnny Carson was married 4 times. 2 of the 4 marriages lasted 10 years. So lasted more than 10 years, so they get divorced spouse benefits. 1 marriage only lasted 9 years, so she doesn't get any divorced spouse benefits. And his last spouse was married to him when he died, so she is entitled to the survivor benefit. What about the other ex-wives? Are they entitled to survivor benefits too? Well, let's talk about how to qualify for survivor benefits. The first is that the marriage has to have lasted at least 9 months, except in the case of accident. This is to prevent people from getting married when somebody is on their deathbed just to qualify for Social Security benefits. Next, the marriage lasted at least 10 years for a divorced spouse, just like divorced spousal benefits. Next, the survivor can claim benefits as early as 60. Just like spousal and individual benefits, this would mean you receive a reduced benefit if you file early. To get the full benefit, you would still have to wait until your full retirement age to file. Lastly, the benefit is not available if a survivor remarries before age 60. But what happens if somebody marries after age 60? If you remarried after age 60, you get to choose between the greater of your own individual benefit, your spousal benefit with your current spouse, or your survivor benefit. I've worked with many widows who were dating around the age 59, and they waited until 60 before remarrying because this benefit was much greater than their own or the spousal benefit of their new spouse. This only applies to widows, not for divorcees. Obviously, Social Security should never be the primary reason to decide when to marry somebody, but I do think it should be taken into consideration, as it could be the difference of hundreds and thousands of dollars a month. So now we know who qualifies for survivor benefits, but how do you determine the amount the surviving spouse receives? Like the individual and spousal benefit, the amount the surviving spouse receives depends on the deceased spouse's primary insurance amount. This is the benefit they would receive at their full retirement age. Second, the age of the deceased spouse applied for his or her retirement benefit. And finally, the age the surviving spouse applies for the survivor benefit. We'll get into an example of how survivor benefits work here in just a second, but first, I want to point out that there are strategies surviving spouses who have an individual benefit can implement to increase their lifetime Social Security benefit. That is beyond the scope of this presentation, but don't just casually elect the survivorship benefit without thoroughly studying your options first. So, what happens if both spouses are receiving Social Security benefits and one passes away? Well, the surviving spouse will switch to the higher benefit. So, let's look at an example. Joe and Julie are married. Both are over their full retirement age. Joe's individual benefit is $3,000 a month. Julie will receive the greater of her own benefit or a spousal benefit. Since her individual benefit exceeds half of Joe's, she is entitled to her own benefit amount of $1,700. Now, Joe passes away. Julie notifies Social Security, and her $1,700 benefit is replaced by her $3,000 survivor benefit. So it's important to make sure Joe's benefit is as big as possible. Let me share with you a real-life example from one of our clients. This couple, at the age of 64 and 63, got called to serve a mission in Africa. With a combined monthly pension of $6,000 a year, they were in a comfortable position, not needing to withdraw from Social Security. Their CPA advised them to apply for their Social Security benefit as soon as possible to get as much out of the system as they could. However, since they didn't need Social Security, this extra money would just accumulate in their savings. After completing their mission, they were still in no immediate need of their Social Security income and decided to delay taking it until 70 to maximize their benefits. Unfortunately, he died at age 70, right after claiming his Social Security benefit. So now, today, she has been receiving her spousal benefit for years. This benefit is over 40% higher than what it would have been had they claimed prior to their mission. So there are three main takeaways from everything we just discussed. First, your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early on your Social Security. If married, you are entitled to a spousal benefit. And if widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for increased benefits. So now, as we wrap up our discussion on Social Security, let's tie this back to your senior mission. For many, Social Security with its spousal and survivor benefits is the primary source of income during your mission. Understanding your benefits helps you plan for your mission and make sure you have no regrets when you do claim Social Security, allowing you to plan and serve with confidence. For those who can't afford to delay, waiting to take Social Security increases your future monthly benefit, helping you maximize Social Security. This delay can open up tax planning opportunities, which is discussed in a different session on tax strategies for senior missions. Some of you may be thinking, but it's only 2 years. How much of a difference can delaying 2 years make? Well, let's look at another example. Let's say Sister Jones. She was planning on going on a mission, and she wanted to know when she should claim her Social Security benefit. She planned to fund her mission with savings, not needing income from Social Security while on her mission. She was under the impression delaying Social Security for 2 years isn't going to make much of a difference. So let's just examine the long-term effects of this decision on her Social Security. So by claiming her benefit at her full retirement age of 67, Sister Jones would receive a monthly benefit of $3,000. Projecting ahead to the age of 90, the total amount she would collect from Social Security would be just under $1.2 million. Now, let's look at what happens if she delays her benefit until she returns from her mission just 2 years later. Her monthly benefit would increase to $3,480. Projecting ahead to age 90, the total benefit received would amount to just under $1.3 million. So when we take that $480 a month difference plus the annual cost of living adjustment you get from Social Security, Sister Joan stands to gain over $100,000 in Social Security benefits throughout her retirement, all by waiting a couple extra years when she didn't need the Social Security income anyway. So, in summary, understanding Social Security is crucial for financial planning around your senior mission. Whether you need Social Security as your main source of income during the mission or you're in a position to delay, this knowledge is key to making informed financial decisions, with the end goal that you can dedicate this time to serving instead of wondering if you made the right choice on Social Security. There are many resources out there when it comes to Social Security. You may be asking, how do you know what your benefit is? So the way that you can find that out is one, you can create an account online with SSA at ssa.gov. You can call Social Security, call the office to get an estimate, or you can visit your local Social Security office. In addition, there are hundreds of good Social Security calculators you can find online. Some with paid subscriptions, others for free. I recommend just Googling Social Security calculator and you'll find one you like. Or speak to your financial advisor and they should have the recommendations there for you as well. So this concludes the Social Security portion of our series on financial considerations for a senior mission. I hope this presentation has been informative so it helps you serve your mission with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. In our next presentation, Alec will talk about tax planning during your mission.